Polly, you wanna talk to us about what's up next?
Yes, our last class of the day of the weekend.
Come back, Gabrielle and Smita. We don't want the last class to come. Let's just keep doing Q&A. Nah, here we are with Tasneem and Josué. Last class.
I cannot believe where this time has gone, where this weekend has gone. I mean, these sessions have been just incredible. I've learned so much in each of them. So thank you to all of our previous speakers. Again, all of the classes have been recorded. They will be available in Spanish and French, so do not worry, we will drop those links soon. But as you all know, you've been in this class for free, and that's in due part thanks to the Photo Wings organization for making it free. For that we can do this. Our next class will begin in just a second. I'm so sorry for the instructors because I made us a little late, but it's okay. Our next class will be with Jose and Tasneem, and they will be talking about all the things that we've been building off of, but even more so just open our perspective of just how to make it in this industry. What we have decided to do is non-traditional, and so they're going to share some ways of how they do probably some non-traditional work and just make money. Like, at the end of the day, we have to get paid and pay those bills. So they're going to be talking about side hustles, what side hustles they have, the many ways they've navigated making this practice sustainable for them. So that will be coming up in just a second.
Yes, so I'm keeping an eye on the participant number here. So I think we can just be safe to say that most people are sticking around for this next one. Of course. And so, Polly, why don't we just skip to the intro? Yeah, right? I'm like, it took us until the very last class on the second day to be like, wait, maybe this actually makes more sense. Polly and I are learning too.
So now we're actually on time then.
Yeah, right. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and y'all know the drill. If you've been here for our intro before, you can go grab a coffee, whatever you need to do, stretch your legs while we kind of talk about who we are and what we're doing. And for those who might have just joined in this very, very last class now. So yeah, y'all probably got this memorized by now, but if not, hello, welcome. This is the Essentials, which are free online classes about navigating the photojournalism industry, made in partnership with grassroots photo organizations, the Everyday Projects, Black women photographers, and Photo Wings, working toward inclusivity, equity, and access in the media. The Everyday Projects is a global community of visual storytellers committed to using imagery to combat persistent inequality in the visual media industry. And as a nonprofit, we work to provide opportunities for our global community, providing structure, support, and direction for the diverse and worldwide range of everyday photography groups. And Polly, co-hosting crime. This is our last class together. But yeah, please, I'm just in awe of you. I don't know how you do it. You're so wonderful. But yeah, so Polly Irungu, my BFF this weekend, talked to us about Black women photographers and the amazing work you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so Black Women Photographers Organization, I started in 2020. And we do just the same amount of work that we've been trying to advocate here for. Is just like the inclusivity, equity across the industry for Black women in particular, and also non-binary individuals as well. So I'm just excited to be here with you, Danielle. And then Photo Wings, again, these sessions, like we said, have been free and are free because of Photo Wings. And it is a nonprofit organization dedicated utilizing the power of photography to further deep thinking, communication, and action. Their extensive online content and Photo Wings outreach programs have myriad educational applications and possibilities. So just like our two respective organizations, they also have a bunch of content available on their site that you can check out as a resource to you.
Awesome. And as always, just want to give a quick shout out to those working behind the scenes. our community team members at the Everyday Projects. I'm also a community team member at the Everyday Projects. Big thanks to Rebecca Gibeon, Washira and Jogi, and Austin Merrill, who along with Peter DeCampo are the co-founders of the Everyday Projects. Also want to emphasize again the amazing work that Polly is doing, elevating the voices of Black creatives around the world. So please, if possible, consider making a donation to BWP. It all counts to support their amazing initiatives and operations. Here we are, last class, y'all, last class.
I can't believe it. There have been some amazing speakers. Like every speaker, I've just been like, wow, as I mentioned, Smita, Gabrielle, like they just really broke down that process for me. And so we're blessed to have the best in the industry joining us this weekend, to share their time and expertise. So if you missed out on previous classes, do check them out, the speakers and their, impressive work. And their links are also available on our websites as well, where you can learn more about them and stay a part of their journeys. And then you can also follow us in our organizations as well. Those are our handles. So you can learn more and check us out there.
Yes, and as we've probably mentioned 200 times this weekend already, but all of these classes are recorded and will be available online. So jot all this down so you can follow us and pay attention to those links that are copied in the Q&A box for easy copy and paste. So without further ado, here we are, y'all. The hustle is real. Like the underlying tone of all of this, right? Love what you do, and the hustle is real. That's it. But yeah, so we've got Josué, Rivas, and Tasneem Alsultan with us for this very last class, and what a great pair to kick it off. Be the ending note on this, because Josué and Tasneem are just full of light and energy, and I do not know how they do it. They just stay just completely like on top of the changing tides. Yeah, just super, super in awe of everything that they do to make it happen. So I'll just go ahead and intro Josué Rivas. I just love listening to you speak. Every time you do, it's like my mind just implodes. You're so thoughtful, so intentional, so cool, like just cool. When I see your videos on Instagram, I'm like, why is he so cool? And like I said, versatile, multi-talented, using all kinds of mediums. So yeah, I for one am just super excited to hear you, Josué, talk today, and Tasneem. But for the formal bio, for those of you who do not know Josué Rivas, he is an Indigenous futurist, creative director, visual storyteller, and educator, working at the intersection of art, technology, journalism, and decolonization. His work aims to challenge the mainstream narrative about Indigenous peoples, co-create with the community, and serve as a vehicle for collective healing. He is a 2020 Hatchlight Leadership Fellow, Magnum Foundation Photography and Social Justice Fellow, founder of Indigena, co-founder of Indigenous Photograph, and curator at Indigenous TikTok. So cool. His work has appeared in National Geographic, the New York Times, Apple, Nike, and Converse, among others. Thank you.
And Tasneem is a visual storyteller, investigative photographer, global mentor whose work focuses on social issues in the Arabic region and challenges stereotypical perceptions of the Middle East. She's a contributor to National Geographic, the New York Times, and others, and her work has been featured in more than 20 exhibitions worldwide. Wow. Tasneem was the first Arab female global ambassador for Canon. Incredible. And she's also a Catchlight Leadership Fellow and has received honorable mention for the Anja Nihijinus. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just messed that up. Courage and Photojournalism Award. Please correct me with the pronunciation of her last name. And she's also a member of Everyday Middle East.
Thank you both. Who would like to go first? Josué, Tasneem, should we roll some dice? Tasneem, all right. Willing to be the first.
Want to get it out of the way. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I would love to first start sharing a screen. Let's see. Keynote. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is me when I'm born. The day of, my mom made me a birth certificate. I'm the first of 3 kids, so I got lucky because I have all the photos in the family, and my 2 other siblings are not as lucky. Anyway, long story short, this is just to show you that I was born in the US to Saudi parents who were studying abroad at the time, and my birthday is 10/10, which is, a few days ago, just in case. What's next? Why is the what? No. Okay, now we can do it. Okay. I work in a very much dominated industry / world of men. And as a Saudi woman, very, very Saudi, I kind of, I don't want to say enjoy, but I don't really care about being the only woman amongst a lot of men. Not because I'm not afraid or I'm stupid, but because I got so used to it that I just document everything around me as if it is. And I think men sometimes do more they do things that are exciting to photograph. Let's put it that way. So in other women, we kind of check what we're we're acting and how we're working around this. So I'll explain further. Don't worry about that. Anyway, I got married when I was 17 by choice, because I was very young and I just moved to Saudi. I was born and raised abroad in the US and UK, and I came back and I really didn't have a job, even though I graduated with a master's in social anthropology and linguistics from Portland State, Oregon. I came back and I didn't have I couldn't find a job at university to hire me as a local Saudi woman. And my mom said, you bought this camera that was so expensive, which at the time was a Canon kit camera. So the whole kit was like less than $1,000. All you professional photographers know that that's not a lot for a camera and its equipment. But for me at the time, it was a lot of money. And she said, just photograph. So I decided to photograph my daughters. That was the first photo professionally that I did, not paid by anyone. But when I say professionally, I had studio boxes that I saved up and bought, and a white and black backdrop, and I photographed my kids wearing Halloween costumes, basically. And this is the photo that became my brand. For the first year, I photographed first my kids, posted everything on Facebook, which in 2009-10 was a big deal. Facebook was really supportive. I got 1,000 follows on my page, in maybe a month or less. Very proud of myself. Thought that I'd achieved everything. And I started photographing everyone's kids. That was my studio, Tasneem, Alsultan, and I had the little logo. I'm so glad that I don't have the logo anymore, but it had a C, copyright, because I thought that's what professional photographers need at the end of their name, their brand. This is the second photo that I took on the same day, also of my daughters, that also was photographed and printed everywhere. And then while I'm photographing everyone's kids, I loved it. I wasn't making a lot of money because I was printing in my own home HP printer at the time and cutting them with that little cut thing. And I was selling 5x7 and 8x10 because that's what I thought professional printers had. My Photoshop skills are non-existent. I'm editing on iPhoto at the time. Again, 2009 and 10, so it depends on how lucky. Don't know how to remove any blemishes, don't know how to use anything Adobe. Freaked me out. But I was based by luck in the country, the Kingdom of Bahrain, which is a small, beautiful, amazing island, very close to Saudi. And I'm saying I was so lucky because the people of Bahrain really, really appreciated that there was a family photographer who was a mother of 2 kids at the time. And I got to photograph everyone and their kids, everyone and their kids. It's a very small population. Enough so that 3 months later, my photography was used as Women's Month in the biggest mall at the time, Seif Mall. And that first photo that I took of my daughter in a Halloween costume was one of many, a big banner in the mall. No one paid me. This was unpaid. This was me giving out my photos for free because I was I was over the moon, like, oh, my photos are going to be in the banner. No one is going to know that I gave away my photos for free without any money. So struggling artists. Again, everyone, people started like photographing this, and it has my logo all the way on the third to the left. You can see Tasneem with my daughter's, that was the logo of my brand, because I made everything on my own. You know, my other daughter also, everywhere in the mall. I became not famous, but you know, everyone else thought that this is my logo. See the copyright? That's really important. After a year of me photographing everyone's kids, not, you know, learning slightly on Lightroom how to edit photos, exhibiting once in like, I don't know what maternity something exhibition, I decided that photography was, for children was not really my thing, because I don't like photoshopping kids' drools or running after and chasing kids that were running around. I just didn't really enjoy it as much. I had enough time just running after my kids. But I would say that I was, for the 2 years that I was photographing everyone's kids, I was doing well. Not financially, even though everyone else thought, because I was putting all the money in everything that I was trying to like advocate as flyers and CDs and I wanted to be a big brand. I wanted to book a person. I want people to book the photographer that I would book. I wanted to like to associate myself with the highest brand there is, even though I never studied branding, FYI. I would also photograph my kids and then give, you know, a big canvas to the biggest party store for kids in Dubai, for instance, when I relocated to Dubai. Let's talk about my Instagram. So right now I have an Instagram of 177K followers. How did that happen? 2010, 11, I was exhibiting in Kuwait for the first time. I decided I wanted to be a wedding photographer after I decided I didn't want to photograph anyone's kids. And everyone was like, are you on Instagram? I'm like, what's that? And they're like, well, it's Facebook is dead. Instagram is the thing. And while I was exhibiting all of my wedding banners, I want to show you how great that was. It's worse than the ones with the photos, but like while I have a lot of beautiful photos of couples kissing and holding hands and, you know, like just book me for your wedding photography, everyone started, instead of taking my business card, follow me on Instagram. And in the span of 3 days of the photo festival, I got like 600 new followers on Instagram. So I was like, okay, Instagram is where my diary, my photo diary is going to be. I'm going to use it more than my actual website, which at the time was kind of relevant because I didn't have a lot of weddings. And just a few years ago, I decided to start another Instagram account just because I have brides who say, but you don't really show lots of weddings anymore. So I have to say, yeah, I do. I have a wedding account and it has, you know, it's just wedding stories. But I have to admit, I'm not that much, you know, like posting as much as I should. I kind of love my personal account more just because it's where I show my personal character. Going back to me, that's me again. My mom was obsessed because I was the eldest, remember? So that's not my wedding photo. We do not believe in young kids getting married, even though I got married when I was 17, but that was by choice. Long story short, while I was unhappy with my own marriage at the age of 17, it was a 10-year marriage, I decided to be, like I said, a wedding photographer. And I did the same to my own daughter when she was 6 months old. I dressed her in a wedding gown. So this obsession with weddings was basically my escape from my own unhappy marriage. So I started photographing everyone's wedding. I loved photographing weddings everywhere in the world. I photographed over 200 plus weddings, I lost count, in 21 different countries. The one thing that I would say that I think, initially, I would go to lots of places and not charge as much as I should because I wanted my portfolio to have a good, you know, variety of images. I was just a wedding photographer when I started. First the kids, but no one remembers that. Then just weddings for like the next 5 years. And so what I loved about the weddings was I would ask every couple, how did you meet? And I would write their captions on my Instagram account because I genuinely fell in love with their stories. And I genuinely fell in love with the couples that I'm photographing. Without their stories, I felt that my Instagram was just a normal wedding account. So all of these photos that you see, they each have a story of how they met. And I would post it and I would get all these random comments of like, oh my God, I relate, or oh, how pretty, or whoa, you know, it was international, and that's amazing. during 2015 or 16, I think, Instagram had with Getty Images this competition. I wasn't one of the 3 winners, but I was an honorary winner. So that meant that I happened to be in New York and I had seen my images there published and printed with all the amazing photographers among the everyday projects. And I remember seeing everyone and asking, I'm just a wedding photographer. Why are my images there? And I remember the editor saying, well, because you were showing us a part of Saudi where you come from that no one else has seen. So it wasn't just weddings, it was more than that. I was photographing even the mundane and explaining how Saudi weddings were special and unique. For instance, did you know that our weddings are segregated, that there's no alcohol in the country, that usually when men come in, the women would usually cover up, and so on. And I would, again, post the captions when the few couples would allow me to publish their captions and their photos. Usually they don't. While I'm photographing all these stories, I'm also posting sometimes random images of like my dad drinking tea or, something random. But then this story happened, and I don't want to really share a lot about the caption because it's still on my Instagram and you can read it. But this is the first time that I went out of my way of being just a wedding photographer and photographing something that was happening in my own backyard of ISIS bombers going to my hometown and bombing mosques that people would go and pray in. And it happened to be that my uncles usually go and pray in those mosques. I couldn't photograph the story and the aftermath that happened because the 4 men who decided, 2 brothers and their cousin and their best friend, to protect and search the men going in, they died, unfortunately. Their mother went on social media and she said, I would volunteer and give my 2 other sons away if it meant an end to ISIS in Saudi. I didn't have access to photograph the thousands of men who went to celebrate, and not celebrate, but like to mourn their death and how they were heroes. But I got to photograph the mother. And I thought, wow, I have more access in my own backyard as a woman. I can photograph the women there. A few months later passed and I got a call from Nat Geo and they asked, we know you're a wedding photographer. Would you photograph the women for the first time joining the municipality elections? And I said, Saudi Arabia is also the only country in the world up until 3 years ago, that women cannot drive. So I was like, well, women can't drive. So why do I care what pavement color, we choose? No, I really wanted to go photograph the Indian wedding that called me the same day. But long story short, again, the editors call and say, we trust you. We want you to photograph these women. And I did, and I loved it. And it was my first ever story to be published by Nat Geo. I want to really share this to say, first of all, you have a bigger say than you think. When an editor says, we want you to do this story and you don't believe in it, you still should hold your space and say, this is how I see it coming from this actual background. This is what's actually going on. Can I have some freedom to explain the reality instead of just what a Western perspective might be? So it's not like you're going to lose the opportunity. And if you do, well, their loss. But with Nat Geo, I was very lucky that the editors trusted me to, photograph this story and also keep true to what I want to do, which is go back to photograph weddings. Because honestly speaking, weddings is still my main bread and butter. It still pays way more than any photo assignment would ever do with any publication, unless they're hiring you for a year, which is very rare. So photograph weddings still, that's, writing the captions of how these couples met. Also with weddings, I'm not ashamed to say I'm a wedding photographer. While a lot of photographers, photojournalists do, I think it's amazing. I get to not just ask random questions of like, can you stick your faces to the window? But also I can learn how to frame, to edit, to post-process, to be a business manager, to sell my work to, someone of a whole assignment. It kind of is, you're photographing the beginning to the end. There's emotions, you're prepared to see movement. You need to know how to use light. So posing, so you know how to do portraits. I think, in my own humble opinion, as a wedding photographer, that wedding photography is really what taught me to be a good photojournalist. And while I keep photographing Saudi weddings and what's rare and weird about them and what's strange and amazing, I'm also realizing that it's special and unique. And it's not just Saudi, it's also the region, the Arab Gulf countries. And I got really lucky that I went to the New York Times Portfolio Review in 2016, and showed my work, and they decided that they want to, they liked it. So also 2015, late that year, while I'm photographing women and showing how women are different in Saudi, they're diverse, we have different stories, we have different opinions. I applied for a project to the ADPP, like Mohammed Kitu before me. I was, I think, a year or a few years before before he applied, but I'm continuously photographing the mundane moments and posting all of these images on my Instagram. And I'll go back to now what I did with the ADPP. Like I said, Saudi is the only country that women couldn't drive. So how do you photograph stories that are not always clear? Like, I got an assignment with the New York Times, photograph women about to drive 9 months from now, but they're not driving. So what do? I had to interview women and their captions, and also sometimes while maintaining the safety of myself and the people that I'm photographing, because I don't want to put them in trouble and harm by the government, because it's illegal to drive yet. It's still announced, but it's illegal. So I'm photographing and writing captions. Faisal is supporting his wife and teaching her to drive in a closed compound, not tagging them just in case. Also photographing all the big changes. So 2017, 18, and 19, I think, were the biggest years for me personally, because I'm based in Saudi and a lot of changes were happening. So women were announced, and then they actually removed the ban for driving. We got to attend for the first time stadiums and watch football matches. We got to also attend and go play sports in a stadium. And I'm photographing all these stories for the New York Times and any publication that's hiring me. And a lot of times their rates are the same, they don't change, but sometimes you can ask them and say, you know what, if I'm photographing this once in a lifetime story, I want the copyrights of that story and I want to publish them wherever I want later on. And there's also like a 4-day cap, or like there are rules that you have to ask the editors before, when can I republish them with other publications and make money off that. Again, I'm always randomly photographing everything I see and posting them on Instagram, because I think people taking selfies is such a weird thing. And I think in 10 years, I'm hoping that we'll be phased out of this. I do that at weddings. I do this everywhere. And I think I'm talking really fast, but that's also me trying to finish the time that Danielle told me.
Yeah, don't make me come on the mic, Tad. No, you're doing good. I do think we got maybe a couple more minutes, but you're so awesome. I hope just look at the chat when you're done.
Okay, so while I'm photographing all these moments, I'm also always making sure that I have context without giving context. So a photo that shows where I am, what time of the light, in what year I am. These are the rulers at that point. Some of them have changed, but also these are the photos that I know the New York Times would want to publish them later on. So remember when I said, I was in the ADPP, the Arab Documentary Photography Program, what I did was use my wedding photography to also be a story that I later explored using my diary in 2002, just before I got married. I want my husband to be the person that I've always imagined. At the age of 17, what was I thinking? But I'm also photographing all these weddings, giving them context, all these women explaining what happens to Saudi women who never got married, who never fell in love, who were widows, etc. And while I'm doing that, sometimes, not always, I share some of their stories on my Instagram account, because I don't want to share all of my images, because there are some publications, always the American ones, who do not want to publish anything that you've published on your social media. So I'm trying to keep that in mind, sharing my stories, like Iklil asks her dad for a BMW and he gives her a horse instead. Or for instance, in this photo, she says, we can't drive, but we can dive, or Hood. And my daughter says, I don't want to get married. I just want to have kids like you. Or Ghadir saying, who is a wedding planner with 70 men working for her, I've never been married. I've never been in love, but who cares? I'm married to my job and I'm happy. And with all these stories, I'm publishing them on my Instagram. Not always, but like every few months, like just teasing the editors, teasing the people that I'm hoping would see my work and want to publish it, while I still email them about, the overall project. This is, for instance, a photo that I kept for myself. And this is the same story that I posted on Instagram. So I don't want to publish all the images, because then they'll say, well, you've already published this online. This photo, for instance, because I come from a wedding photography background, even though this is part of my Saudi Tales of Love project about the woman who is a fashion designer, Nasiba, who is going through, hoping to marry for the second time. I put the flashlight behind her, external flash, beautiful photo, I hope. Anyway, this photo wins the Sony World Photo Awards. So they gave me great Sony equipment, traveled to London, got to hang out with lots of people, and I wrote about it, you know, and this was the cover photo for Time, like the Time story that they published. This was happened to be the photo that they decided to cover. From the weddings, I'm also photographing behind the weddings. What happens to the people who are working behind the scenes that we don't know about? So I've been doing this for years now because I've been photographing 10 years of weddings. And in December, I'm going to exhibit a project that I've never exhibited before called Painting the Roses Red. It's an homage to Alice in Wonderland and the Queen who's like, paint the roses red, off with their heads. So all these people that we expect that the brides have no idea that they exist. And I think they're really important to know about. And again, while I'm photographing all these domestic workers and the workers that are happy, you know, working heavily at these weddings, every, you know, occasionally I'll write their stories on my Instagram, teasing that I'm working on this project so that editors can know. COVID happened a few years ago, had no assignments, got really depressed, got very upset. And then I randomly decided also through my Instagram that I'm going to start interviewing people on Instagram Live before every other celebrity did it, before, I don't know, Jon Stewart and the rest of the celebrities. I did it first. I think most probably I did it before most of them. So I decided I'm going to photograph every day. I didn't decide. I just decided I was going to do it every day until I got bored. But I did it for 3 months, nearly every day. And I learned how to edit these, you know, first Instagram only gave us like less than an hour and then it would cut off. So I would record it from my iPad and then try to edit and repost it for only 15 minutes. And then I think because of me, I'm going to take all the credit for this, that they allowed us to repost a 1-hour version of the interviews. But I decided like the first person I interviewed got 23,000 views only because he is a filmmaker, but also he was the first person that I interviewed that actually had COVID. And I interviewed him while he had COVID. And this is early March when no one knew what was happening. And then it slightly grew and I started interviewing people that were on the, you know, the media industry. So they can be rappers or musicians and everything else. And then because it was so amazing, again, not really a big ego, I'm just showing off here. The Everyday Everywhere project decided, I think you have, you know, maybe you and we might pay you to do a podcast. So I did amazing. I co-produced it with half the people who are already here. You should all check out your iTunes podcast. And I think they're like in several different links and they're on the website, right, Danielle? Please tell me they are. Yeah. And it's called Repicture. So go listen to our amazing podcast interviews that talks about our industry, the fears that we have, the frustrations that we have, why it's, you know, how do we make money? What if there's, you know, uncomfortable situations that you might face? So that's kind of how I used a lot of my Instagram and my social media access. So I photographed in 2017 a whole concert that had 7,000 men and I was the only woman. Remember how I don't really care that I'm the only woman? Not because I've never had any uncomfortable situation, but I kind of tried to fight back. And I feel like if I'm holding a camera, then maybe I can beat someone with it or so different. Anyway, going back to this topic. Now I'm hired by amazing concerts like Middle Beast that are happening in Saudi that have lots and thousands of men and thousands of women. And I'm photographing, hired by them, paid by them, but still doing what I want to do, keeping an archive of Saudi. Now, I'm nearly done, Danielle, I promise. But my last slide is, if you want, we can, you know, later on answer and respond to a lot of your questions, but I use a lot of reels now and I'm hired by Vogue. I've been hired by L'Oreal to give adverts, by Motorola phone. I've been paid by really, really funny, weirdly enough. I hope that they never hear this, but like Betty Crocker which by the way is not a real human. Betty Crocker is just the name of a brand that someone decided is the name of the brand. Betty does not exist. But I was hired by them, paid, and I was like, you know what? Paid for my daughters to go to school, and I need that. Why not? I'm a photographer, I'm a storyteller. I'm really proud of what I do. But if I'm hired as a storyteller to tell the stories that I believe in, that I want, why not? And with our Instagram phones and reels, and like, we can all be editors and like make up stuff and make up stories, not lie, but like with this Betty Crocker, go back and see what like crazy advert I made, which got 21,000 views. Yay. Anyway, thank you for watching.
Oh my God, Tasneem, I love you so much. You are just, if we could only bottle your energy and sell that. You're amazing, so inspiring. I do not know how you, yeah, I mean, this is exactly why you and Josué are here to speak about this last topic. You just, both of you just say, you stay not only ahead of the curve, but like seriously trendsetters, and using these tools to promote your work, to talk about your work, to raise awareness of these issues in such cutting edge ways. So yeah, wow.
Thank you. And co-hosted by Niasha. Yes, she's the best. She was so patient and she's so amazing. She listened to me and all my crap. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Josué. Very last speaker of the day. So excited.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Like even Josué's backdrop. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, look at Josué's backdrop. Just so innovative. That's the word for you both. Innovative. All right. Take it away, Josué.
Thank you. Yeah, how do I follow up that presentation? It's so powerful. Yeah, it was so beautiful to see more of that story, because I think I've seen you speak once, but yeah, it just blows my mind and so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, today we're gonna do, I'm about to share something that I think, if I'm being honest, like I've been wanting to talk about these concepts that I'm about to talk about soon, for a while, especially in the industry that we're in, especially at the time that we're in. And for a long time, I hesitated because I felt that a lot of these things that I'm realizing myself, are actually, yeah, they're like tools for liberation, and I think that a lot of the way that we see ourselves, it's, often controlled by the perception of others. And I think that, hopefully we can learn that we have so much more value than we think we do. So that talk today is going to be called Creative Practice for the Future. Just a little bit about myself, which is kind of weird to talk about, to be honest. I know these like, conversation, these themes are about self-promotion and, how to do side hustles. But I think that what I learned, and I continue to learn, is that when someone compliments me or compliments us, is really like receiving that compliment, or receiving that good energy. I think that a lot of people sometimes have, and receiving it not just for yourself, but for your ancestors as well. I think that that's really important. So in that way, I'm going to talk about myself. I'm a futurist for sure. I'm an indigenous person, Mexica Notami from Mexico. I'm also a creative director and a visual storyteller, I think, at heart. I like to make sure that there's education in the work that I do, and also that there's technology involved. I think that every year I go through this process of trying to understand my bio constantly. So this is the latest version, but ultimately I think all this work and these co-creations that I try to do, they're rooted in understanding that we can heal through storytelling, especially through visual storytelling. So that collective healingness is something that it's important in my work. 1 second here. And in that same way of kind of realizing that we're in such a paradigm shift right now, I think language is one of the things that I continue to see being the tool that is constantly being used to, to tell us that we're not valuable, right? So a lot of that is rooted in colonization, and that's just the truth, like we've all accepted these terms. So for me, language is something that I like to use as a tool to reframe and to reprogram ourselves, if that makes any sense. I think that the way that we speak about things and the words that we use are so important to us existing in this realm and also existing in our practice. So today I want to introduce these words that I think are going to be useful for the journey we're about to go on. So healthy collaboration. And what that means is understanding that it's okay to be more than just an observer and a journalist, that we're in a place where that worked for a long time, but we cannot escape the fact that the people that are in front of the lens are also reflections of ourselves. And they're also, in a lot of times when you're working in your community, they're also your relatives, the people that are very close to you. So in that way, I think that we need to collaborate more. And I think that the future of these mediums that are, visual based or, camera based is going to be collaboration. I think that humanity is going towards collaboration, and it has to go to collaboration because we're going to be forced to. So rightfully so that, the different arts and especially visual storytelling is going to have to become collaboration, but we have to do that in a healthy manner. So healthy collaboration is that it's understanding that there's a protocol and almost like a process to collaborating with people and co-creating. The other idea or language term, I guess you can say, is creative practice. So using that instead of saying that we're just like photographers, or like photojournalists, I have a hard time with the photojournalist word, or even visual storytellers, what is a multidimensionality of ourselves, and that is a practice of its own. Self-love, I think that in a lot of the conversation I heard this, throughout these workshops, is that we have a hard time taking care of ourselves. Like we have a hard time looking at the mirror and saying how are you doing? Like you're so focused about getting your Pulitzer Prize, but or your World Press photo, but how are you doing? How's you? And I think that we have to talk about that more in this industry and almost accept it and embrace it. Purpose, that is very much rooted in making sure our work it's not just doing it just because of reaction. I think that if we have an understanding of where we come from, we have an understanding of where we're going. And that purpose could be a good North Star for that. And I think that in our work and then the stories that we tell at this time specifically, we need to be purposeful. And anything that is not purposeful, I think is going to start slowly fading out. And I think we've seen that throughout the last 10 years in photojournalism or visual storytelling. People are combative, about the changes and about the new paradigm. So making sure our work has purpose is important. And last thing, the word creator. I think that, and this is just my own experience, and I mean the experience of people that keep close to me that are also visual storytellers, is that you have to do this for something bigger than yourself. And one of my teachers constantly reminds me of the creator that lives within you. When it's like, well, you're the creator. And then I'm like, what does that mean? And then when you keep that creator at the center of your practice, then you're where you're supposed to be. You're doing the things you're supposed to be receiving. You're supposed to be, having these circular motions when you remember that you're the creator. So through that process, my teacher also teaches me that it's not what we make, is what comes through us. So with that being said, I came back to this question, especially for this theme or, even these workshops that have been going on this weekend. Why do we started doing this? And this is, my first image. I don't want to talk too much about my work in this presentation, but I'll share this much. this photograph was, you know, I grew up houseless when I was 7, since I was 7 to 11. So I have a lot of compassion for folks that, that are living in the street. And this, you know, I had borrowed my friend's camera for the weekend, and I was just really curious, how to photograph because of my dad. So then I remember hanging out with these folks that we see here, Armando and Roberto, in downtown Fullerton, actually, in Orange County. And when we were just chatting it up. And I think that a lot of what I realized photographing them, because I asked them if I can photograph them, and they're like, yeah, sure. But I was like, well, what does this even mean? Like, why do I want to see these people? And I think that when it came down to it, it was that seeing ourselves in others, you know, and quote unquote others, it's really important. And I think that for me, that's why I started doing this. And that's why I started with this journey of healing myself through my creative practice. It's because at the end of the journey, you know, of our practice, I think a lot of us are gonna remember that the whole time it was just play, you know, that the whole time we had to like be flexible. So yeah, I started because of that. And I want to pose that question out to you, you know, as, you know, like almost like little seeds. I want to plant some seeds in you, but like, why did you started this? Or do you remember why you started? Because I think that was the most raw moment of my storytelling journey. When I started, because I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew exactly what I was doing. So when we remember to go back to that, I think it's, maybe we've gone, you know, in a different direction than that original intention. And another thing that I think it's important as we learn to reshape and reprogram ourselves from the different expectations, and I think also the different systems that are in place for visual storytellers, whether that is, you know, editors or, you know, like clickiness in the industry, you know, like all these different like gatekeepers, like all these different things that are just there and they're not really changing that much. We have to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? And, you know, like, why are we doing this for? I think that that's a big part of realizing our self, our value, really. I think that when we do that, we can come back to a center that allows us to do the things, you know, that like, you know, ask for the right amount of money, or say no to certain things, or expand the, you know, the project or the assignment or whatever it is that people are doing. When you remember of why you're doing this, and also who are you doing it for, and why are you doing it? I think that reminds us of things that maybe don't fit, you know, like maybe some assignments don't fit into your practice, and that's totally okay. To not have a mentality and almost like an approach of scarcity. I think that when we open ourselves up to that abundance, that not everything has to be, you know, you have to do it or you have to say yes to. All of a sudden you start creating space. And so I think these two questions are pivotal in you know, whether I say yes or no to something. Even this workshop, you know, like, well, you know, why are we doing this? Okay, why am I doing this? I just had a baby. You know, all these different things that I'm like putting in my mind. And then also it's like, well, because this is extremely important. I wish we had this like even like 5 years ago, you know, where if you wanted to really dig deep into your practice, into your purpose, that you had like this kind of workshops. And then also like, why am I doing it? And I think that that's ultimately that's the defining factor in any process of you know, me creating something or me being saying yes to something. And for me, this is gonna have ripples, these workshops, I think, that we might not see, you know, like we might not have data to like write about it, but the energy that I think has been built up in this space has been powerful. So I believe in that. So that's why I'm doing this, and I'm doing it for you. And then I always come back to circles. And I think that the reason why I put way of life here is because our identities are not only us being like photojournalists or, world-renowned photographer or, Net Geo grantee, like all these labels that we put on ourselves. And it's really interesting because we all do it. This practice or this, your creative practice, whether it's photography or whatever it is, it's also part of a way of life. And it's like a larger ecosystem, I think. So when in my opinion, what I came down with is this ideas of having this circular motion, and almost as a reminder for myself of, if I'm going to do a project, these are the basics. Like, these are my agreements, and being okay with it. So I start with healing. I think that for me, what I notice in especially, working with different level of artists and different level, like, agencies and, NGOs and clients and all these different things, is that so many people now, I think, are starting to see the value of people doing things not just because of the money, because there's something much bigger than themselves. And I think that, like, the people that, in my opinion, I've seen rise and go to a place of, like being, people knowing them or knowing their work, is because they're working in a paradigm of, one, healing something, either within themselves, which that's what I try to do, or like helping other people like find a path to healing. And even like 2 years ago, like I said in the beginning, I was so scared to talk about healing in like a photojournalist, setting, or like even visual storytellers, like even like the more avant-garde like folks out there, like I'm still like, I don't know if they're gonna get it, like, but now I'm just like not afraid about that anymore, because since 2020 happened, I was just like, yeah, like this is the time, like this is a time to reframe and to reimagine and dream together what some of these labels and almost identities, and again, all these like systematic things, like we just accepted them for a long time, but like the truth is, like we all can actually reshape this, and we are doing it like literally today, just by even being here and being open to some of these ideas. I think it's a big step. So healing is important. It's like something has to transform, and for me, like if the project or even a workshop or whatever it is not transforming stuff, then I'm just like, yeah, like I actually don't resonate with that, and I'm not gonna say yes to that, and I'm gonna move on. And then right across that is innovation, and this is important because I think that just in that, we're in the birthing of something so new and so different, and almost kind of like beyond, just remember like that first like month of the pandemic, like nobody thought it was possible that like people would stop and like rethink and like remember almost, like we, for a second there, I feel like we remember so much about what it actually matters. And people didn't think it was possible. Like people thought, and obviously we got distracted afterwards, and, it was a very good way to like keep people focused on the fear. But, for me, as my father's died, my father died from COVID, and I'm going through this process of like, man, what does this all mean? Coming out of it with, okay, this is a new time. Like you can make the best out of this new paradigm, or you can, try to crawl back to the last one, or try to go way beyond, which sometimes I do, which in like the wave in the future, like the next paradigm. For me is remembering that being able to do multiple things with my practice is important. Like freeing myself from this idea that I have to be like labeled as something. Even my bio, like I said earlier, I have a hard time talking about what I do because it's circular, like I'm not just over here like, yeah, like I think it's like interesting because like I don't really care about winning anything anymore. Like I'm just like, that's great, but if I'm doing my work, then the things will fall in place. And I think that innovation is a big part of that. It's remembering that we can dream something new now. and that the industry, because it has to be part of this, paradigm shift, it's gonna have to adapt. That all these things that I think you heard this weekend, and even what I'm saying now, these are just like ideas that maybe you have something within you that is, it's a big idea, and then you want to share it with the community, and then all of a sudden people start talking, people start getting, there creates a movement, I think. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of these folks that are like doing this work, like everyday projects and women photograph, indigenous photograph, diversify, is that we were proactive in the process of not waiting until the tragedy happens so that we can start thinking about the future. And that innovation, it's so important because if we can, I think we can dream something that is, something that is much different than what we had, then we will be able to move into this, next ways of seeing ourselves. And I think we're already doing that so much through social media. And I'll touch a little bit about that later. Abundance is a big one too. I think that having a mentality of abundance is it's gonna battle a little bit with that, with that mentality of scarcity. I think that we have all been told, whether it is through our teachers or universities. I didn't go to school, thankfully, or even like our own peers, like we're constantly being pushed against each other, and almost kind of like there's this weird competition happening, that in my opinion, it continues this lack of valuing ourselves properly, or even having gratitude sometimes. I think of the things that are available to us and the things that people have fought for years to have. So I think that abundance, it's a key part of this new journey of visual storytelling or photojournalism, or whatever we want to call it. And also reciprocity. I think that when you have so much abundance, whether that is a spiritual abundance, whether that is financial abundance, whether that is emotional abundance, you'll be more than happy to give more to others. That a lot of the times, in this kind of like communities and also industry, people are just constantly trying to be the one. It's like, I want to be the one that gets that prize, or I'm gonna be the one that does this thing, and a lot of the times that I think that conflicts with us having reciprocity to be able to truly help each other out. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. And all these stats give me, I when I was putting together this presentation, I kept thinking about this, this idea that if we value ourselves, whether that is, what is the value of your time, or what is the value of, your energy, really, you're exchanging energy with people so that you can go ahead and, and do that thing that you do, right? So this becomes a practice, I think. I think that if I am gonna label myself, I'm a practitioner. I really thought about that a lot throughout the last 2 years, because there's so much that we're holding, and maybe not everybody. Maybe some folks just want to get out there, make their photo, and put their caption and send it off. And that's totally okay. I still believe that there's a practice there. But are we more than just this disposable, creatives? I know that I've seen a lot of the work from folks in the presentations, and also just in general right now, there's this generation in this wave of people that are going deeper, folks that are really, telling their own stories, they're really going into that place of, well, I want to start with me and my situation, and then from there, I'm going to see the world around me. And I think that that's something that we've been lacking in this last paradigm that we've been living in. Where the magnum photographer was the photographer. It's yeah, but what about instead of looking out, that's why the word shooting, and I don't want to talk too much about language, but when you're shooting something, you're like shooting out. But the whole point is to go inward. I think that's where this new paradigm and this new generation of photographers are tapping into, is that they're going inwards in order to see. And before we were told that just be as extractionist as possible, and you go get that photo in that Pulitzer Prize, man. Like, you go get that. And it's like, yeah, but I know some of those photographers, and they're like super sad and like bitter. And now, like there was never reflection involved in the sense of like collectively, like as a culture, as a paradigm of like photojournalism. Like we just been doing the same thing. It's almost like we're working on, some old ass computer that like we could like totally be using the new iMac, but we just continue to go, no, but we gotta stick to this one. Anyways, so if we are practitioners because we have a creative practice, then we should be valued at a different rate. We should be seen collectively as something more than just a photojournalist or photographer. So how we value ourselves, it's the most important part of, I think, having a creative practice, or being a photographer, or having a studio or having a business, is that when you value yourself, you bring value to others. That when somebody hires you, they're not just hiring you because you know how to use that light and that strobe really well, like, beautiful soft light. They're not just, a lot of people, in my experience, again, this is all my experience, they hire you because you're a person they want to be around, or they're a person that they want to have on a Zoom call, or they're a person that know that are gonna like make and bring some form of like balance and direction sometimes, if you're a creative director, to a group of people. So my suggestion is that if we value ourselves, people are going to see that we value ourselves, and then from then they're going to have to value us at that standard. And I know that's a little bit out there because, I'm also very aware of the privilege of like, this is the privilege of like being able to get an assignment and then, be like, I'm not going to let go this, $400 from the New York Times because, it's $400, needles $400. It's like, yeah, but collectively we just accepted that. Like if we value photography, or if visual storytelling, or practitioners, again, like the bigger picture, then we would pay that person as much as you want to pay a doctor or someone that you consult for something that is very deep. And I feel like people within organizations and media outlets, NGOs and New York Times and all those folks, like even in commercial work, like they're starting to see it, like they're barely starting to see the light of, wow, this is so valuable. And this person is so in it that the value just becomes huge. But unfortunately, most of those people don't get paid that well. And in that same process of seeing ourselves differently, thinking of ourselves as practitioners, then we start finding now that you have like multiple interests, that you're not just a photographer. It's not, that became your identity. It's like, no, but I can actually do video. I can actually, even when you don't know how to do it, which I'll be honest, like half of the time that I learned something, it was because I said I knew how to do it and I actually learned it. And like, that was a thing that pushed me to be like, oh yeah, that's not that hard. Like, why, if that person can do it, then I can do it. So I need to learn it. And then, you watch a tutorial, so you talk to people, or like a lot of times, if I want to learn something, I just go in and like intern. Like I just literally show up to an agency and be like, hey, I want to learn this. Can I just give you like a month of my life to come out here a few hours and learn? And a lot of the times people say yes. Like actually every time, they have said, yeah, of course, that would be great. And again, it's because they see the value in you because you value yourself. If you're like, I have enough value in myself that I know what I'm offering. So going back to that multidimensionality of ourselves is, having the curiosity, not even like the, full-on commitment, like the curiosity to see what else you can learn beyond just photography or beyond just writing or beyond just, video. Like, what if in between one of those new practices, extensions of your practice, then you start finding out that, that you love something and then you can combine it. And that's how we innovate, because we have to, going from a wedding photographer to like, Net Geo, to me, I'm like, I just, when you explained it earlier, I was like, yo, like, that's so dope. And I didn't know that. But the fact that like now we can combine and we can actually mix and match a lot of the, labels, you can call them that. And then actually create something new. Like, what is an indigenous futurist? Like, I don't know. All I know is that I'm indigenous and that I'm thinking about the future constantly in my work. And that's what makes me an indigenous futurist, right? So like being able to create and even create new language around your practice is really important. And that multidimensionality is going to create more value ultimately for your practice and for yourself. And also, can we heal by telling our story? Is it possible to go deeper within ourselves, inward? And for me, that's what I'm trying to do. Like every time I pick up the camera, every time I do a presentation or whatever it is like, how is this advancing like that inner journey that I'm in? And if I don't have an answer for that, then again, you just say no to it, or you maybe move on if you're able financially. But I think that, yeah, like keeping that and remembering that healing ourselves is really important, especially when we come from places and situations that are extractive and have, punish, a certain person or a certain group of people for being, and I think that that's something that the industry is starting to learn, that, that there's nuances about hiring people from those communities that they're trying to document. And I hope, yeah, like, we learn more of that and like really go inward again, like doing the self-work is really important. So I think the healing, it's a big part of what's next. And are we open to receiving like that abundance that we said earlier about what's out there for you? I truly believe that every single one of us has a purpose, that every single one of us that even picks up a camera has a specific purpose, because we're using this tool that is, it's very unique and it's like a portal, right? Like when you pick up your camera, you take us into your world and in the world around you. So I think that being able to receive this abundance, this self-love, this like reimagining and remembering of what the practice is, of what your journey is as a storyteller, that's really important, because when you do that, and it's almost kind of like a little bit like editing, like a Google Doc, let's say that, it's, you write your own manifesto, you write your own purpose, like you write it down, piece of paper, Google Doc, whatever you want to do, and you just put it down on paper, like the why you're doing this, who are you doing this for, what do you think your purpose with this is, and then you always keep it. And I think that when you do that, you create space. And sometimes, you have to purge like certain things. Like I have a lot of compassion for people that go to war, and photograph. I also think that, there is a balance to that. And I think that we need more peace photographers, not just war photographers. But sometimes we carry those wounds from our practice. And when we carry those wounds, then they, sometimes become even the center of our practice. Like there's people that are super addicted to photographing tragedy of like Black people and like indigenous people and women. Like just like I seen it where it's like, dude, like why can't you just go focus on something else? Like go do some inner work and not just focus on the tragedy and the pain. Because unfortunately, maybe some of those folks are carrying that pain. And I think when we make space for this abundance to be delivered to us, we open up the doors for something much, much bigger than ourselves. And I think that's where a lot of our practices are going towards. And ultimately, it's like, how do we give back? Like once you are able to reframe your practice or, reimagine it even, and you're able to go through this process of getting this abundance and hopefully finding a path towards healing yourself and healing others. How do you share that abundance that you have? How do you give back? And, not to get to like, linear about it, but like, I constantly have a hard time doing things for like I won't say names, but like just like different outlets, because they make you want to sign these like releases and stuff. And I'm just like, man, like I pay these people, man. Like if you're trying to sign a release, like, I know it's not photojournalistic and that's just, its own thing, and it's old paradigm thing, but why is it that we get to make money off the images of others? And maybe like, we can start learning how to reciprocate and how to make sure that our practice, because it's so abundant, right? Because we receive and we allow all this abundance to come in, becomes so, so rich that now you're sharing, however that is, whether it's, sometimes people do it financially, but, sometimes it's about, so like going back to that community and being with that community, or even like going radical and just being like, I'm gonna create a, emergency fund for this community that I photograph. So whenever they need something, they're able to tap into that. So anyway, those are just like ideas. And again, I put a lot of questions in this presentation because of that, the fact that like I actually don't know anything, and like all I'm learning is that through these experiences and being able to like talk about these things, and some of these things might be too out there for us. Some of these things might be like, yo, like I don't believe in any of that, and that's totally okay, because I think that they say that everyone's invited, but not everyone's coming. And I think that the work that we're meant to do with a lot of these organizations and a lot of these like initiatives that are out there in the world is to try to guide us there and try to guide us to this next path. And I'll leave us with this question of what kind of ancestor do you want to be? Through your practice as a human, as a woman, as an indigenous person, as a Black person, and all these different interesting identities that we have. Like how do we collectively think about like who do you want to be as an ancestor? And what do you want your images to be? Like what do you want your stories that you made here? Like where do you want them to go? Who do you want them to be seen by? And I think that that's a big part of this ideas, is that it's so much more bigger than ourselves. And even thinking about the people that are gonna see the images that we make once we're gone, how they're gonna remember this time. I really think about that. And I think this generation of visual storytellers that are coming out, that are pushing the boundaries, are gonna guide us in a different path of those stories. And ultimately, this is my son on the right. His name is Tonatio, and I love to photograph him. It's like one of my favorite things to do. Just want to say thank you, Tlazokamati, gracias, everybody. And I'm ready for some questions. I know that was long, but thank you for listening.
Amazing. Wow. I think Tasneem and Josué just did the like literal mic drop. So we're good, y'all. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day. No, but this was like, wow. Yeah. Honestly, I hope y'all have a chance to look in the chat. Like this, both of you, this was the perfect way to end a very, very rich weekend workshop. You have us thinking about the future and technology, and a lot of really important questions that we can take with ourselves. And both of you just embody so much this, Tasneem talked about it too, embracing who we are, not being afraid of that, being true to ourselves. So thank you both again for reminding us of this really super important thing that, like in this industry, sometimes it's really hard to remember that. So again, please take some time to scroll through the chat. Y'all are deeply loved and inspiring, so many. But to jump into some questions, because we do have some time, of course, for questions. Both of you, have, well, let me back up. So it's easy to sort of get caught up in the hustle of making money and just surviving. Both of you talked about, remembering your roots and your passion. Tasneem, I love how you said, I'm not afraid to say I'm a wedding photographer. A lot of other people are. So how, what are some ways that you try to remember your roots, remember your passion? Of course, Josué, you talked a lot about that, but maybe some more like specific, I love what you said about like, look in the mirror and say, how are you? But yeah, just if y'all could talk a little bit more about that. How do you do that?
I ask everyone that I meet, how are you? Tell me more about yourself. What's your story? I didn't even notice that I was asking everyone I meet, what is your story? Until a friend just a few months ago told me, that's your line. What's your story? I think we each have a very unique, rare story. And if I connect with your story, which of course I will, because I'm a human and you have something human and special about you, and I will fall in love with your story. I might forget your name, but I'll never forget your story, and I'll connect with you, and that's something that will resonate. And I will photograph you in a way that gives you more pride. It gives you more beauty. It gives you, the way that we take people's stories, we take their photograph and we can't give them anything in return. I think that's a disgrace. I think that's horrible. It's inhumane. I'm taking something, I'm building my name and my brand and my, I'm being this amazing photojournalist that's just telling everyone's story, but that I'm giving nothing in return. That's not normal. So then if I at least photograph you with dignity, using different lights, writing a caption that you feel proud that I'm sharing the caption of, sharing everything that I can, being someone that you want to remember, and saying, you know what, I got photographed by this random stranger that now is my friend. Hopefully that we built a relationship. But if I photograph you as a random stranger, I think that really tells a lot about who you are. I need to connect with you. I need to know more about you, and in a really funny way that I know Josué will now outdo me with his amazing therapeutic, calm, soothing voice and words. But like it'll resonate, and it'll just share how much I'm falling in love with the person that I've just met. I think that's really important.
That's bars right there. Those are bars. Oh man, yeah. What was the question again? I'm just listening to you.
Yeah, just when you're sort of worried about making money and just surviving paycheck to paycheck, how do you remember your roots, your passion, stay true to that when you have to respond to an editor? How do you kind of stay rooted in that, which Josué you kind of talked about, but if you have some more like specific examples of how you navigate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's really important for us to thrive, like you use the word like survive, and I constantly think about that, because I was in survival mode for a while, like especially when I started doing this. Again, going back to that same idea of like, if you can remember why you're doing this, like if you're like, oh, I got into this because of this reason, and then remembering that was something much bigger than you, that was, again, that raw version of yourself, like that, something changed and something shifted for you to pick up the camera. You had to, like, there's no way, because this is another tool outside of ourselves that we just got to, we got magnetized into it. It's like something happened there. So remembering that, or even being curious about it, not even fully remembering, but just being curious of like, oh yeah, like, like I listened to you talk about like doing weddings. Like I try to do weddings, and I was so bad, because I was just like, I was trying to be a wedding photographer, but I was like, well, if I'm just being myself now, I'm like, I can totally do a wedding if I'm just being myself. Because I think that for me is remembering that I don't have to fit in. Like being okay with that, like just being totally and fully okay with an editor telling me that my photos are not a good fit for a story, or that my photos are not a good fit for whatever. I'll be like, that's okay. Like, I'm sure someone out there is totally going to be a great fit for that. And from there, I think it just like allows you to separate yourselves from this, active act of hustling. Even the word hustling, was really interesting when we use it for this, because I was like, self-promotion and hustling. Like, I was like, man, how do I know how to do that, but how do I explain that? And it really comes down to just like being yourself, being okay with expanding and being multiple things, and then making sure that everyone knows that you love yourself, that you value yourself. Like if you do that, that's it. That's game over, because you start seeing right away, oh, that person doesn't value me because they're just asking me for something that goes beyond my value. So I maybe want to say no to that. Or maybe I want to separate myself slowly from that person. Or maybe I don't want to be in this group of people, this environment, because it just doesn't feel right anymore. And I think that that's really important, because then you free yourself from the expectations of others. And then you really start doing a practice, and you really start doing the work. So that's how I remind myself, like literally every day, like even this morning when I was making this presentation, like, after not sleeping because of my baby, I was like, why are you doing this? Like, what do you want to say to this group of folks that are all over the world, that are like where you have been, like, and where you still are, like searching for the purpose of all this, So that was like, it has to come back to, like loving yourself, so that you can love the people in front of your camera. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll drop it.
I had an experience once where I was I'm based in Saudi, so a lot of the time I'm only hired in Saudi, and that's very frustrating, because I feel like, why can't I be sent to India? I love India. Why can't I be sent anywhere else? So I had an agreement at one point with a certain editor of a really major publication that in return of me only working for you, I want to be sent to other cool places, anywhere. So I became, for once, a photographer sent to Cape Town, South Africa, and I had to photograph danger and poverty in townships of the abalone poachers. I didn't know what poaching meant. I had to Google that one. I didn't know what abalones were, which are a huge big clamshell that it brings good luck in the Chinese culture, but it's near extinct. Anyway, I photographed the story for 4 days that I was paid for. Out of the 6 days, 2 days I hoped were like, holiday for me. And the editor said, I don't like the photos. They don't show danger and they don't show poverty. And I went and photographed again. Still, the photos weren't danger and poverty, until I stood my ground and I said to this certain editor who's in the New York City, saying, poverty to me is very different to them. It's different to each of us. Danger is different to all of us. The threat of danger to me is not existent right now. I feel safe. I've been invited by their homes. They might not have doors and windows, but they have iWatches and iPhones. So who am I to judge how poor you are and how that needs to be seen by a major publication? I think for me, to be true to yourself is to see how you feel at a certain point. And sometimes those images, I think images are amazing and beautiful if they send such a message without the caption. And then sometimes we need that caption because it's a beautiful photo, but without that caption, our guts are just not going to be moved as much, because they might look the same as us. They might feel the same. Like, I don't know. We need to have a discussion also how important images are with or without captions and how good they are. But that's me keeping true to myself and not keeping my mouth shut. They actually published the photos in the end.
They did, and they were beautiful. Let's not shut our mouths. Beautiful things come out when we stay open and loud and proud. Polly, you went off mic. I know you're ready with the question. I see you. What's your question?
There's some good questions, and we'll try to power through because I know we are past time and it's getting late for some folks who are based internationally. So you just mentioned how using the word survive, instead of using the word survive, thriving, which I love, getting away from that scarcity mindset. This person asks, what elements helped you to transition from survival to thriving, and how helped you propel?
You want me to go?
Yes.
Okay. I think it was after Standing Rock. So it was actually in 2017. So I got this fellowship with Magnum Foundation. It was a social justice, photography and social justice fellowship or something like that. And it was great. Like it blew my mind, like just listening to some of the teachers specifically Fred Richen. Like I had like this, this really interesting like relationship with him, because like he was blowing my mind, but I was also like, damn, like he was ahead of his time. Like how can we start thinking that way? Like how can we start like moving into the future so that we can dream it together instead of just showing up and somebody else dreamed it for us, So through that, I realized that, because I was in a very scarcity mindset, like, as a person who like, there's certain things about the way we live here in the US that are really interesting. And it creates a lot of stress for people. And, someone in my situation, it's interesting how I was like chasing the validation of imperialism. And by that, I mean that like, like I live in the United States, but I don't consider myself an American. And there's a lot that I don't agree with, and trying to go towards that instead of trying to be validated by this industry. So it came after that. It was actually, something with our community. We had a little gathering for our community, and yeah, my community reminded me of the fact that I was already validated. That, and this might sound out there again. I'm a very poetic person, as you all can see, but like that if the land recognizes you, that you're good, that is all you need. Like, is your homeland recognizing you? Is the land itself recognizing you? Is your community recognizing you? Like, that's what matters. Like, I would much rather have a grandma from my community like tell me that my photo's amazing than like WordPress photo. Like, that to me, that's the real shit right there. Like, oh damn, the folks that I'm photographing actually see me, and they honor me back. So we did the circle. Then we gone through the circle. We're like, okay, we did it. But if I'm like, no, but I need those editors in I said France or Netherlands, I don't even know what it is. Like those European folks to like just tell me that I'm good enough. It's like, but who cares? Like, you're already validated by your community. So that was the moment where it was like, okay, I need to go inward. I need to stop thinking about the fact that like, who cares who won that prize? Like, is your community good? Like, if you happen to win it, great, awesome. But if you don't, like, don't do it to please anybody. Like, do it because you really want to grow as a human, and you really want to have a practice. And then guess what? Like, as soon as you start doing that, and as soon as I started doing that, other people saw the value in me. They're like, oh, you're more than just a photographer. You actually can do this and this and this. And let me give you a try, and let me give you a chance. And all of a sudden, I'm just like over here directing a commercial for Nike. Like, I'm like, what the heck happened? Like, how did it go from that to that? And then how can I stay the same?
Mhm.
Like, how can I not change? Like, how can I'm in the room with Nike and blah, blah. I was like, how can I still be myself and not be like, please, Nike, love me. Like, I need your validation. It's like, I think that's really the key. It's like, once you make space to thrive, like, the only person that can stop you is you. I know that sounds really like out there, but like, it truly is. You're the only person that's stopping yourself from growing. Like, you're the only person that really is putting yourself down. And when you realize that like you're freaking amazing and that your practice is everything, because it is, then you stop caring. And then you're just like making. You're actually tapped in. You're actually channeling things. I'll leave it at that. I know that's a big answer, but
Oh no, I mean, like you said, there's so much there that you can it was kind of like a big question too. And so I just need like Austin, I know you are watching this, a co-founder of the Everyday Project. I need you to start another podcast, Daily Affirmations with Jose. I need you guys to do a podcast with him, because I mean, like, everything you're saying is just so profound, as people are saying in the chat. Wow. So I have another question though, but this time for Tasneem. I loved how you just walked us through your journey from literally from birth to now in the shortened version. I loved it. One of the points you made was, just how you were doing things for yourself. You were capturing like the everyday beauty, the mundane for yourself. You were doing these interviews on Instagram with people you admired for yourself. And then that turned into you getting invited to be a podcast host. that turned into you getting assignments with, National Geographic, you getting calls, by just doing what you loved. What advice would you have for those who, may feel like, okay, they've been doing something for a very long time, but they still haven't been called for assignments or projects, or it hasn't really translated to anything? What would you say to those? Because I just feel like there was power in that you never know who's watching, and the work you're doing is being appreciated, and then that time can come. So what advice would you have for people?
I didn't expect any of this to happen. This was not my goal. I really was genuine, and I still am genuine with my Instagram being a visual diary of my daily life. I want photos like, I haven't deleted a lot of posts from the beginning, but like, every few years I'll go through the beginning of the first post and I'll see how, oh, the frame is off. Oh, that was silly. But like I had better comments at the time because they were more genuine, and now I'm being judged by credible photographers. But who cares? Your Instagram for me is just, I want to see how I've grown as a person, how I'm sharing my stories, and I want to see how that brings us together. I try as much as possible to be, share Q&A. I try to share lives. My characters on Instagram, and I'm not a celebrity. I'm not even when I'm doing the Betty Crocker, it's me being silly. Even when I try as Danielle has another story to tell, but that's later. But I think, for instance, my Instagram shows how crazy and intense I am, how all over the place I am. It's not themed, it's not poetic as much as I love like Jose's. I'm not Jose, I'm me. Look at me. So my character is my social presence. And I think if that's you, without really caring about anyone else, about the editors, and it's just a geographical kind of like, oh, I've been here, this is my photo. Also, I think stories show my presence more even than posts. Stories are there for 24 hours. So then maybe you want to make them into reels, but show your character and how you're different than every other photographer who's in the same location. There's a lot of photographers everywhere. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has an Instagram. Everyone is an amazing professional photographer. What makes you you? I know photographers are going to hire me because of my style, and also my character, probably because they know that I'll get access to places that other people are smart enough not to go to. And keep consistent. The work that I've done about domestic workers, I've been doing for 10 years and no one's published it. And now I'm going to exhibit it all of a sudden instead of publishing it. I've been working on, and it's weddings. It's what I've been doing. So it's just, in all honesty, the work that I'm doing in my home country is an archive. I'm not a big shot photographer in Saudi. I'm more internationally known for whatever crazy reason. I'm not celebrated in my home country. I'm more recognized, in Nat Geo, which here in this platform is a big deal, but it's not everywhere. My parents don't care. So I'm doing what I'm doing because I want this to be an archive. And 20 years later, we're going to say Saudi Arabia has had amazing changes in in 2017. What do they look like? These are, how youth were acting. Do they look like other white countries or not? So just you be you, photograph yourself. If an editor is lucky enough to find you, great. If they're not, that's an amazing publication that you'll have one day. We need to see that. Sorry,
I love that answer. And on the flip side, we've been talking a lot about IG, but of course, there's a love-hate relationship right now with Instagram and with social media in general. Like, what advice would both of you have for like other ways to promote yourself, your work, finding, funding? I think somebody in the Q&A box mentioned like Patreon. What other tools and ways would you promote yourself outside of social media? Or other platforms?
And sorry, as you answer this question, let's also kind of piggyback, thinking, we talked a lot about the future and innovation. So as you answer the question that Polly said, maybe also top it off with, do you have thoughts on where social media is now? Have platforms like Instagram lost their way as they've bent to the pull of capitalism? or is social media still an important way to get your stories out there? And I think that'll have to be the very last question, because it's pretty late for people. But this, seriously, I mean, we can't top this. Y'all are just really damn, yeah. But future, social media, capitalism, go.
Do you want to go? Me? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. So like, I think that all these things, just like camera, right? Like you have your camera, you choose your camera, you have your brand that you like, your lens that you like, all these different choices is the same exact process with social media, but we just have to be willing to let go of it. And this is what I mean by that. Growing our presence in the social media platforms is basically a tool. Like it's virtual shit or virtual stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like virtual stuff that you're like, it can go away any second, and it probably will go away any second, and none of that will matter. Nobody will care if you have a check mark or not, like, because it won't exist. And I really think that that's going to be the future. However, just use it as best as you can now, and by that I mean make it work for you. Like you know, I worked a lot in music for a while, and I remember thinking like, man, like everyone, even though like the artist, the musician is the provider of the experience, like the music, you know, everybody comes because of the musician. The musician is constantly working for others. Like it's constantly working for the promoter, it's constantly working for the manager, it's constantly working for the record label. Like we have to remember that collectively, that if there's no Instagram without us, there's no TikTok without us, that we literally make the thing. And if we don't innovate it, like you know, then we're like not using the tool for how we want it to work for us. And you know, like that's kind of like an interesting thing, because with like Reels, for example, you know, after TikTok, though obviously these photos are not being shown as much, you know, all these different things, but I seen photographers that took that and were like, I'm gonna go heavy on my photos and not do many Reels. And I play around with that all the time. Like I'll go like a month without doing any Reels and post photos, and then be like, okay, what happens? Like you have to play with it. That's the whole point. It's like, don't let yourself use you. Like you get in there and you use it and you play with it and you arrange things how you want to arrange them. Like for me, 3 photos, black and white, at least the cover, like that's what has worked for me. And people like it, and people connect with it. Like they'll, you know, I have a lot of questions, and I had to kind of stop answering Instagram messages because it was getting weird. But like, yeah, I send them to my email. But like people are really interested in the image because they can feel it. Like if you can feel something, you're gonna most likely, and again, it goes back to the value. Like people see value in it because they're like, wait, hold on, I just felt something because of this photo. I see the value in this. I need to go seek deeper of you know, of being curious, or, you know, wanting it for your house, or whatever it is that people want to do with it. And I think that that's the whole point, is like share the stuff. And this is going to sound super out there, but like interpret it how you want it. Share the stuff that feels connected to your spirit. If you can post the stuff that is truly connected to your spirit, that's game over. Like it will be you. It will be like your authentic experience, your authentic voice, not caring about who has more followers or who has a blue check mark. Like all that stuff doesn't matter. What really matters is like, are you connected to the thing that you're putting out there? Because even though we're dealing with virtual stuff, even though we're dealing with the virtual world, the energy of the thing that you're making lives through. Like it goes through the virtual world, and it remains real. And that's why you have to have a good process of making images, because you'll feel it. It'll be embedded in the image. Just like you embed metadata, we can embed other types of energies in the image so that it lives through the internet and, you know, people's homes and whatever, books. I really believe in that. And that's another conversation, but I'll leave it at that. That's how I use my photos and videos and Instagram. I just play, and then I try to stay consistent.
My
I
mind.
did that.
Seriously, bars. I mean, you dropped so many. I mean, I'm gonna be asking myself, what type of answers are you going to be like so many times after this? Thank you so much. Go ahead, Tasneem.
Well, I was gonna say, I did this Vogue Arabia video thing, and they dressed me in clothes that I can't afford to buy. So like that I can't share that now.
Yes, you
But
can. If it's your authentic self. Tasneem, are you
well, they did.
Are you
So they approached me.
Hot girl summer is okay.
They approached me and they were like, we want you to be one of the 4 Saudi women that we're going to do a whole story about this crazy city that doesn't exist yet. And I said, okay, what am I dressing up as? And they're like, a photographer. I'm like, cool. Like, that's what I do. And they're like, yeah, it's you. It's your voice. It's your story. But you have to dress up with our wardrobe. It's all like, I don't know, really fancy outfits. We're supposed to be hiking. I don't do hiking. So that's another crazy thing. But what I really want to do is also say, like, you have to put food on the table. I'm a single mother of 2 teenage daughters. I have a 17 and 15-year-old, and God knows what they're up to all the time, most of the time. So I'm in a country that I don't know how long I'm going to be special and rare as a photojournalist photographer. So I thought, okay, I will write my caption. It's my story. I'll wear whatever stupid outfit they're going to give me. But in the end, I know what it's about. And also depends on the brands that are going to approach me. Motorola camera. I'm like, yes, I'm a photographer. Canon ambassador. Yes. The way that I also rely mostly, because you never know when all these, like, they're looking at the followers, and they're not really looking also about what your content is. So I have had brands that I've refused. For instance, Porsche gave me a car for 3 months that I had to like drive around for free. But then when I read the contract, it was a neon green Porsche. And I'm a Saudi woman that I cannot afford a Porsche. So not the stereotype. B, it's neon green. Everyone's looking at it. 3 in the caption, that's C, not 3, but in the caption, in the contract, it said that I have to post 3 stories a week about me driving a Porsche. I returned it after a week because I was like, did you see what I post all the time? Like, what am I supposed to do with this Porsche? Like, how many selfies like that I refuse to be associated with this ugly green Porsche of a car. So some things you need to like understand and ask yourself, can I work with this Motorola phone? Yeah, it's a camera. I can fit this in with my narrative. It's for a week and then I'm done. Can I say, no? What are the rules? So negotiate. Ask if you feel comfortable about wearing like a goose outfit to go hiking in the middle of the desert. I did it. Would I do it again? I don't know. Depends on how much they'll pay. That's my 5 cents.
Wow, y'all, we cannot top this. We cannot top this. And I love Tasneem that where you draw the line is neon green. No. So y'all keep that, hold on to that. Thank you both so much again for really, really just being the perfect ender to this. Again, giving us so much to think about. Please check out the chat. And yeah, y'all have been truly inspiring to everyone here. Yeah, so just thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to Josué, to Tasneem. Thank you. And Polly, I'm sure you have like lots of gushing too, so I don't want to.
I mean, my mind is just like.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just like, again, everyone, I'm like so impressed by all of you. Like this one, I feel like I just went to church today. So thank you. This has been so good. And I mean, thank you to all the speakers for spending your weekend with us in the midst of everything that you have going on. We appreciate all your free expertise that you shared with our communities. To all of you who attended, whether it's one session, all the sessions, thank you so much for spending your weekend with us as well. If you missed any of the classes, don't worry. They have been recorded. They will be transcribed in Spanish and French and English as well. So thank you to everyone who showed up and shared, their comments, their kudos, their love, their energy, their questions to our speakers and with us.
Yes, thank you too so much again to all of the amazing photographers, teachers, futurists, like just all around badass human storytellers. Y'all have been so generous with your time. Thanks again to all of them for creating this incredible ethos of sharing. It's really all about uplifting one another so that we can create a more accessible visual media industry founded on all of these amazing things that we've been talking about: self-love, loving one another, taking care of one another, doing this because we feel that it is true to who we are and to the world that we actually want to live in. So thank you, thank you. These are the amazing people who spoke this weekend. Before we say a final goodbye, of course, we just want to thank one more time these amazing grassroots organizations again. So the Everyday Projects, global community, providing opportunities, doing it, living it, breathing it, making the essentials happen, free online classes. Polly, if I could, I would give you a big hug and a bouquet of roses.
You need to take us on the road next time.
Yeah.
We need to come to you guys next time. This is amazing.
Totally. Black women photographers. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, girl. We've done that.
In my organization, Black Women Photographers, I saw some folks in the audience, so that was great. Thank you all for again coming, showing up. And this was made possible by our sponsor for this season, Photo Wings. So if you are not aware, please do check them out. All their links are in the chat and also in the Q&A box. We couldn't have done this without them.
Yes, and thank you again to everyone working behind the scenes. And if you missed it before, please consider donating to Black Women Photographers. Polly single-handedly with support, though, making things happen. Lots of initiatives and amazing opportunities for Black creatives around the world. So check that out. As Polly always says, follow us on social, tag us, mention us, follow us. What do you say, Polly?
No, I mean, like literally, like when you have time to like actually process everything, y'all, like once you process everything, share your takeaways on social. I've seen some great takeaways already in the chat coming in. What did you learn from this? Let other, friends, your network, your community members, other friend, visual storytellers, let them know about these amazing resources. And that way we can continue to do this again and again and again. So yeah.
Yes, so thank you once again, everyone. Like Polly said, we'll have these recordings on the website. Check back. And we just, Polly said it perfectly. Thank you all for being here, everyone in the audience. It wouldn't be possible, honestly, without all of you telling us what you want to learn, showing up. And thank you once again to all of the amazing photographers and teachers.
And so after this, you'll be getting a survey in your inbox from the Everyday Projects team, again, letting us know what you learned best, your favorite takeaways, what we could do to improve, and what do you want to learn in the next season. Again, what Danielle just said, we catered this, we built this with you in mind. We take all that feedback from the survey and then we build a season off of that. So that's what we've been doing for the past 3 seasons. And that's what we'll do for season 4. So please, fill out the survey once you get it. Let us know. And again, continue to spread the word about this amazing series that we have going on. So yeah.
Yes, and before we say goodbye, just one more huge round of applause. Thank you to Photo Wings that make this possible. Check out their online resources as well. They've got an amazing library of educational resources. So thank you to Josué, to Tasneem, Polly, the Everyday Projects, Black Women Photographers, Photo Wings, and to all of you. Amazing weekend. We can't wait to do it again. Right, Polly and Josué and Tasneem? And everyone working behind the scenes, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Danielle. I feel like you've been keeping me on time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've ever been a co-host. So thank you all so much again. We appreciate all the love in the chat. Please, continue to build community with each other. So if you haven't already, try and get people's IG handles, all that jazz, and really take this community offline. And we hope to see you guys in season 4. Yes. Thank you, everyone.